velkommen til Samtaler om fremtiden. Jeg er i dag i Santa Fe på Hotel Santa Fe i New Mexico, og med mig har jeg Doyne.
Hi, Christina.
Did you understand I was speaking Danish?
I could tell.
All right. So, welcome to the show. Doyne, could you please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So I'm Doyne Farmer. I'm at the Institute for New Economic Thinking at the Oxford Martin School, and I'm a professor of mathematics and computer science at the University of Oxford.
Okay. So, aside from the beautiful pan flute in the background, this show is about the new technologies, what they do to us as humans and our society. And so, Doyne, what do you think are the big challenges and the great opportunities with these new technologies?
What's a big question? There are tremendous opportunities and tremendous challenges because the new technologies that we're creating are so powerful. And whenever something's powerful, you can use it for good or bad or both at once. And, we're seeing past technological revolutions had to do with things like, recording information or energy, having other sources of energy that allowed us to move stuff around and manipulate our world. But we're now talking about technologies that are really about information in a deep way, about manipulating information, about computation, about thought, about technologies that could potentially alter who we are. And
can you be more specific? Give I love examples.
Sure. I mean, we see it both. I think something everybody's seeing in little glimmers of already is coming from artificial intelligence. The fact that computers can now recognize your voice, they can recognize who you are, they can recognize your face. You can take a picture off the web and you can just identify who are the people and what are their names. Can identify your fingerprints, can identify your retina. So computers understand a lot of things about the world. The world chess champion is a computer, the world Go champion even is a computer. So we're seeing a lot of powerful things. Now computers still can't think in the same creative way that people can.
Yeah, I was going to ask, have we hit singularity?
No, we're not at the singularity yet, but you can feel us moving toward it. And so that's powerful, frightening. Computers are altering, in a sense, they've already altered our memory, because if you're carrying your iPhone along, you have a question, got cell reception, you just whip it out and ask Wikipedia. It's in a sense, it's already augmented our brain. But then in parallel, in a more quiet way, at least for most people, we're also altering our biological framework. There's now a technique called CRISPR that allows you to go in and edit the genome and pass those genome edits on through the germline to all the offspring that occur ever after. And
so you can design your babies?
Yeah, potentially. At this point, if you started designing your baby, there would be a lot of unknowns in terms of what the design would do. And of course, if you could just blindly scramble DNA, that's not very useful. But there's a lot of things we do understand. We know a lot about the genetic basis of disease. There's more to learn. We know some things about the genetic basis of mental illness, a particular kind of disease. And it's probably not that long before we understand more about what kind of genomes lead to intelligence and not. And so we're really talking about something that alters what it means to be human.
Okay, so is that good or bad?
It's good and it's bad. When we can potentially, literally understand the map from DNA sequences to characteristics of the human beings with those DNA sequences. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer all the time, so that we could say, well, if we just flip these genes over here, the person that's going to come out the other side will have these characteristics. And so now you can start to design with some real intentionality. And I think that, we have the option to say, no, we're not going to do that. But, well, we may or we may not. Who is we exactly?
Well, I know that China is experimenting with it already.
That's just what I was about to say.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. China is experimenting with it already, and so if we don't do it, others may do it. And I guess there's a question of what attitude to take. One attitude is fear, which I think is appropriate. But another attitude is excitement that we can be better than we are. That we may be, I think we are, the first species to have the opportunity to influence and shape our own evolution as a species, to redesign ourselves. And I think that can lead us to some interesting and beautiful places. I think it's going to start with things like avoiding diseases, making sure your kids don't have diseases or bad mutations that might, Down syndrome, things like that make life more difficult. Nobody wants their kids to have a difficult life. Right. Then it'll start to get into more things that more relate to mental illness. Obviously, nobody wants that. But then, as we get deeper understanding, who doesn't want their children to be a little bit smarter? I mean, I'd like to be a little smarter.
I think you're pretty smart.
Well,
if you can augment these things, our DNA, wouldn't it potentially be possible to, create humans that love more, that have a deeper understanding and more compassion and stuff like that?
Yes, I think we're going to engineer those kind of things. Now, are we going to do all this right, in the sense that are we never going to make mistakes and do the wrong things? No, we're going to make mistakes. And, those mistakes may take, the whole effort may take us in places we can't imagine right now. But evolution has always been about experimenting. We came about because of billions and billions of experiments that took place through history, where stuff got tried out. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. The stuff that works, we tend to keep. The stuff that doesn't work, we tend to, it dies out. And so I think that's how the evolutionary adventure going forward is going to be. It's just a bit different because the mechanism changes from the Darwinian mechanism of letting the variations occur at random and selecting those, to making the variations more intentional, because they're evolving under a consciously directed process.
That's very interesting. And also, it makes me think about, our hardware, our bodies, and I guess also our minds. They're not adept for what's waiting for us. And since we're fiddling so much with the new technologies, it kind of makes sense to me that portion is involved in that. So, what is your reaction to that? And how do you, let's jump ahead, maybe 1,000 years. 100. Where do you think we are? What do you think we'll look like?
I can't say, Christina, what we'll look like in the future. I do think that, to come back to the theme you were just stating, for the last 50,000 years or 100,000 years, evolution's been taking place through culture and technology, and not through biology. We're pretty much the same as Homo sapiens was 50,000 years ago. But I think we're starting to run into the limits of that. We've generated so much knowledge and so much information that nobody can come close to mastering it anymore. And we're struggling to try and assemble it and synthesize it and make sense out of what we've done. And so we increasingly need good minds. But there's so much information now, nobody can come close to understanding all of it anymore. And so we become more and more specialized. And as we become more specialized, we have a harder time communicating and grasping the big picture. So I think that we are reaching a point where we're hitting the hardware limits. You can't do the next software upgrade because you just need better hardware. And I think that is going to drive a lot of the change. Now, where is that going to take us in 100 years or 1,000 years? Well, I guess I'd guess that, first of all, we will evolve to be smarter. I think we'll evolve to be more communicative and more social. It may be a little bit like there was a transition about 700 million years ago from single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms. There was an explosion where suddenly you got multi-celled organism. Now, how did something like that happen? We have single-cell organisms that are all independent from each other. They're all just independent operators. And they start connecting more, realizing that if they give up some of their autonomy, they can gain power by cooperating with each other more carefully. And if you take an organism like you or me, all my cells have given up their autonomy. They're totally dependent on all the other cells I have. But by doing that, by cooperating with each other and losing their identity, they become more powerful. And so I think we're going to see something a little bit like that in the future. I don't know when exactly. I think we're talking 1,000 years now.
How will that happen?
Well, it could happen lots of ways. We could start communicating in ways with more bandwidth than talking. We could, so imagine we could read each other's minds. It's not inconceivable anymore.
God, that would be so cool. Like some
Cool,
of my,
but scary.
some of my ex-boyfriends, I just wish that they would read my minds. Yeah, and if you're watching it, you
There
know
might
who
be
you
times
are.
where you wish they didn't read your mind. So bear that in mind. But no, I think, and who knows, maybe you have a part of your brain that you can keep separate from everybody else.
Yeah.
And another part of it that broadcasts. And I think another direction things may go is that right now we have the monopoly on being the intelligent species that can manipulate the world and use language to record information and manipulate information. But in the future, you can imagine different kinds of intelligences. Just like on Star Trek, there was Dr. Spock, was a little different than everybody else. We already have that in that computer AIs are very different than human AI. And so
we're going back to singularity in a way.
Yeah, we're going back to the singularity. I think we're talking about the singularity. As soon as we start talking about changing what it means to be human, we're talking about the singularity, because if we are going to evolve to be more intelligent, we're going to be able to do things that we can't do now. We're going to be able to think about things that we can't imagine now. And so we start to enter a world that we can't quite conceive of anymore. And I think that world may have more diverse kinds of intelligence because we already see it. Computers can think in a way that's very different than the way we think. As we understand more how thinking really works, I think the computers will start to think too. But I still suspect you're going to see specialization. They'll be good at a certain kind of things, we'll be good at a different kind of thing. And so
it doesn't have to necessarily be bad.
No, I think like it is now, it's a very symbiotic thing. We use computers to do things that we enjoy and like and need, and they need us because after all we're creating them. And I think that dependency is just going to get more intense through time.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, I could continue this talk forever, but yeah, I think we got a lot, and I think like the essence of it is that the challenges and opportunities are kind of part of the same thing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doyne. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been flabbergasting, scary, and fantastic at the same time.
Well, thanks, Christina. It's always fun to talk about things like this. I think it's important to talk about them just to get people thinking about them. It doesn't matter that people agree with what I'm saying, but that people should be reflecting on it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this is a conversation we're having, and it's not, this is how it's going to be. This is just to opening up a conversation that I hope will continue. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Now I'm going to switch to Danish for a minute.
Okay.
Og tusind tak til jer derude, fordi I så med i samtaler om fremtiden. Jeg håber, I vil se med næste gang, hvor vi har andre nye spændende temaer på programmet. Farvel for Santa Fe. Vi ses næste gang. Bye bye.
Bye.